Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we're holding this evening's meeting on the territory of the Wasanic Nation. And I'd now like to call our regular council meeting of Monday, July 8th to order. We have two public participation periods this evening. The first is our usual general public participation period where people can come up and speak on any item they wish. However, we have a second special public participation opportunity this evening, and this is with regards to our 2018 annual report. We issued public notices that this document, which is a statutory requirement of all municipalities that is published on an annual basis, was made available on our website for viewing, and anyone wishing to speak to that in particular, if you could hold till the second public participation period. So I'd now like to commence with our first general public participation period, and anyone wishing to speak in, please come forward. Give us your name and address. Press the mic, if you will, to get the red light so we can all hear you. And welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Don McNamara. I'm the Vice President of the Stones Throw Strata at 9832nd Street. Item 11C tonight is going to be addressing a staff report regarding the replacement of the permanently mounted transformer on the 3rd Street parking lot. And I would just like to express my appreciation, our appreciation, for the work of the staff and the CAO in addressing this issue, which had the potential to be a rather knotty issue, and it's been completed completely to our satisfaction. And we'd like to thank everyone involved, and that we concur in total with the report of the staff.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback and your comments. I'll ask for a second time if there's anyone else wishing to address council this evening. For a third time, seeing none, I'll close the general public participation period. And does anyone wish to speak in public participation to our 2018 annual report? Seeing none, I'll call that participation period to a close. And we'll now move to presentations. We have 3 presentations this evening. The first is from the Sister Cities Association regarding the 2020 Sydney calendar. And we have a presentation by Committee Chair Bob McClure and his compatriots.
Good evening, councillors and Mayor McNeil-Smith. I'm Bob McClure, Chairman of the Calendar Committee for the Sydney Sister Cities Association. I've been in this position a few years now because I'm chair of the committee which produces the Town of Sydney calendar. And this is the 9th annual calendar that we have produced, and it's been a very successful venture for us. We're here tonight, the committee members are here tonight, to give you a preview of the 2020 calendar. And this year, 30 local photographers submitted 344 pictures, which is pretty close to the record, very, very close indeed. Now, 11 of those pictures you're going to see tonight, but in the calendar itself, there are 50 of those 344 pictures that can be viewed. The calendars are available at various outlets around town, and so we hope that after you've seen them tonight, you'll maybe go and buy a few, send them overseas as Christmas presents or gifts, or just to hang around the house. And that includes everybody here as well, okay? Good. Some years ago, the committee decided it needed a theme song. And at that time, I was the only male on the committee. So one person who is not on the committee now suggested that we have the theme song Calendar Girls, which was a big hit in the 1960s. Some of you may be looking around, some may be aware of it, for Neil Sedaka. So while we do our presentation this evening, we'd like to serenade you with Neil Sedaka singing Calendar Girls. Here we go. This is the cover.
Beautiful.
January. February. These are all local photographers. March.
Beautiful.
Some of our members like to celebrate the particular days of the month.
There we go.
April. The cover is featured also in the month of April.
Very appropriate.
May. I think you'll like this one. It's a view of the whole town of Sydney. June. Of course, the library has changed colour now, but that's all right for a historical record. July. August. September. And Sandy always likes to help us out.
It's okay, Sandy, I'm taking minutes.
October.
There's a lot of months in the air. Look at that, eh?
November. And December. Well, there you are. That's our calendar for 2020, the town of Sydney. We hope you like it. And maybe we could show the councillors once more. I'd really like to turn.
It's getting really
A note about Sandy, who always helps us out. We were going to change the theme song, and Sandy said, "There's no way you can change that theme song." So I think Sandy likes to dance to this at home or something. So thank you very much, committee, and away we go.
Well, Bob, thank you very much. Congratulations on your success over 9 years, and thank you to the calendar girls and boys.
Oh. We know you're busy people who live by a calendar, so we thought you might like a copy of our guest calendar.
I thought this was a CD of the song. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks very much.
Well done. Our next presentation this evening is from the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue. We have a presentation by Tanya Claremont. Welcome, Tanya.
Well, it's a bit of a hard presentation to follow up. I think I just learned something about making an impact from that last group, so I'll have to rethink my presentation the next time around. So thank you so much for having me this evening. I'm here representing the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue, which is hosted at the Victoria Native Friendship Centre, where I work. I wasn't here at the very, very beginning, and so I'm not sure if this happened, but I just want to acknowledge the territories of the Lekwungen and Wasonic-speaking peoples, and we appreciate their gracious hospitality in letting us live, work, and play, and work towards reconciliation here in their territory. So I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about what is the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue, but just for those of you that may not know, I wanted to give a little preemptive about what the Victoria Native Friendship Centre is. So the Friendship Centre's mandate is to encourage and promote the well-being of urban Aboriginal people by strengthening the individual, the family, and the community. We do that by offering a diverse set of programs that cater to our community members from prenatal till elder. And this year we're celebrating 50 years of uninterrupted service to the larger Victoria area. So we have about 112 staff. That includes our term and contract summer staff. We have 38,000 square feet that we're operating out of right now, which is our administration and programming space. We have 86 daycare spaces that we have full with a waiting list, and we also offer a seasonal shelter that has 25 beds. We have 3 apartment blocks, including a foster home that a family with 4 foster children are living in. And we're the first friendship center that has a public lending library. And I strongly encourage people to come and visit. It's called the Bruce Parisian Library, named after a former executive director. It's run completely through volunteerism and donations. It's the largest collection of Indigenous material and content on Vancouver Island, and it's logged into the UVic catalog system. So we are part of the system that the students and researchers are able to access. So what is the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue? We've just finished our first year, which was really a lot of conversations about what it means to be in this space of reconciliation and what it means to try and promote reconciliation in a community like Victoria that's very complicated. We have lots of municipalities, and we're a regional district, and we have the provincial government functions here, so we have a large sector of public servants living here. And we have a very diverse Aboriginal community. We have 53 distinct First Nations on Vancouver Island alone. So there's a lot of different complexities at play when we talk about reconciliation on Vancouver Island. What we were able to actually figure out in 1 year of lots of conversations was that we wanted to uphold a set of core values that we all work towards and wanted to agree to work under. So truth, justice, education, decolonization, sustainability, and inclusivity. And our 3 key focuses that we want to work towards are supporting and promoting the urban Indigenous voice, enabling community engagement in all places in Victoria, and generating ideas for tangible actions. But above all else, we wanted to remain a grassroots approach where we're ultimately accountable back to our citizens and community members that live here with us. So this is a little sort of chart of how it works. We have our urban community and our allies at the top, and that's who that we are responsible to and report back to. We're working with an advisory panel that's an open access panel, so people self-select to be our advisors. We've had 2 gatherings, and I know that some of you have participated in those gatherings, and we really appreciate you guys making the trip to come and show us and explain to us some of the work that you're doing in this area already. And we do have a steering committee that has representation from federal government, provincial government, the regional body, and as well as some of the municipalities. The steering committee is also open access, and that's an opportunity that Sydney could consider participating in. And we have a working group that keeps all of our work moving forward for us. So our mandate is to promote collaborative reconciliation that is led by the urban Indigenous people and population. You can see there our membership for our steering committee includes the Métis Nation of Greater Victoria, community members through elders, artists, professors, and youth, as well as all the other different levels of government and some of our funders. So in the first year, we managed to hold 7 steering committee meetings and get the whole group together for full day meetings. We had 2 advisory panel gatherings. The first one had 40 participants, and the second one had 85 participants. And then we had 18 working group meetings, and I've made 6 community presentations so far. Well, actually, this one I think is my 9th now. I'll have to update that slide. So really our central goal right now just remains dialogue. We need to hear more back from the citizens that live in this space, what it is that they're looking for in this journey. And so I'm here to just make you aware of what we are doing, to let you know who I am, so that we can start building a relationship that's inclusive of all of our citizens. When we say Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue, there's a lot of words there that we haven't defined. We haven't defined Victoria to meet any specific geographical zone. We haven't defined urban to say that does or does not include on-reserve populations. So we're having a lot of conversations still, and we're just here to let you know that those conversations will be happening, and we're going to start sending you invitations to be participating in that. And again, I really applaud you for already being parts of participating in our advisory panel in the past. And I did bring a small gift. These are just some books that have the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action in them, as well as the Declaration of Rights of Urban Indigenous People. And maybe I'll give those to you. And so we're going to be hosting in August an evening promoting the federal elections and voting in the federal elections. We're going to be having our 50th anniversary event in September. And then we have our annual Two Spirits gathering for youth that happens in November. And in February of 2020, we'll be hosting a large community gathering on reconciliation and open for the public to come in and share their voice with us about what's happening. So I don't have a specific ask for you. I just wanted you to be aware of the work that's happening in this territory and let you know that we're really enjoying the engagement we've been getting so far, and we hope that you'll continue to come into our space and work with us.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions from council? Councillor O'Keefe.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you again. So I attended the last gathering in February, which was really great. And I was just wondering if there's any follow-up plan to that or anything soon aside from these other events that you've mentioned?
Yes, so this graphic was the recording that was done on site in February during that gathering, and you can see all of the various conversations that were had. We have some things in the work. There's been a few delays with our funding, so we haven't been able to set dates yet, but we do have a plan to bring the advisory panel back together this fall, potentially in November, to have another event as a lead up to the larger community event in February. And our website will be becoming interactive over the summer. We have people working on it. We launched it in February for this gathering, and it's a static site at that point, just giving information, but we're going to be launching interactive components like a calendar where people can post their own activities to it, a photo section where people can share with us what their community is doing, stories and things like that. So we hope that that website will start to be part of our communications about what's going on.
Good.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your presentation and the update of your activities over the first year. It sounds like you were very busy. And we're pleased to be involved with Councillor O'Keefe, participating in those advisory panel, and we look forward to participating in the future.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a third presentation this evening. For those who might be following on the published agenda, this is a late item to our agenda and a presentation, and it is from Choice Events and a presentation by Kathy Noel. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kathy Noel, and my company name is Choice Events. In the paper, 2 weeks ago, I saw that the Seaside 5K was going to be canceled. Barbara and Randy and I met a couple of years ago when you were thinking about and having this race, and then applied for Canada 150 money and got some of that, and so the event's been going on for 2 years. My background, I moved here 26 years ago to work at the Commonwealth Games and stayed. I've had an event company. I've organized the Victoria Marathon for 19 years. Goddess Run, TC 10K, over 500,000 people have crossed finish lines that I have created. And when you look at these runs and walks, it's not just about the fastest. It's about the people participating and getting involved, whether it's the sponsors, the families, the multi-generations that can walk or run or get involved and just be healthier. I think it would be a shame to not have it this year, and I would like to propose that I would take over the management of it. Part of that is engaging the Sydney community. And being able to take ownership on this event. Seaside 5K, great name, but it could be anywhere. So being able to follow along with your marketing and doing Sydney by the Sea 5K, and being able to, and still have the 5K and the 10K and the kids run, being able to build off what has happened in the last 2 years, keep the same route. But as Mike Vanderlyn and I were just talking about, is even looking at how to reduce the impact of the race, the run, walk, on the community, and maybe only use half the road rather than the full road, so people don't feel trapped. They always have a way to get out of their neighborhood and get to wherever they want to go on the Sunday morning. But being able to encourage the chamber members, the schools, those that have to, that are graduating and have to get leadership hours. Perfect opportunity to invite them to participate, not only as marshals or giving out food at the finish line, but being part of the organization and being able to say, how do you get them involved to teach them those project management skills and those budgeting skills? I have, for the Victoria Marathon, a committee of 55. We have 1,600 volunteers that put on that event. And similarly for other events. So it takes a team, and I want to build that team, but I want to build that team locally, and being able to look at the corporate, the schools, the businesses, the residences, and then figure out where we can encourage charities to get involved as well, and being able to have them benefit and leverage this event so they can not only raise awareness for their charity, but also funds. So I'm not sure if you have specific questions, but I would love to be involved and make sure it continues on, not just next year, but the year after and the year after and the year after.
Thank you. Thank you for that outline and telling us of your excellent experience. Are there any questions from Council? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's good to see you back again, Kathy. And I like some of your ideas. Now, one of the things that I'm just sort of stuck on a little bit is the timing, obviously, now coming up to having a run in September and doing the organizing for it now. Part of what I really find encouraging in your proposal is a greater youth involvement, the students and the local community, as much as I also want to see runners and participants coming from outside of the area and seeing what our town has to offer. I also feel it's really important to involve the people who are here. So having said that, this is now the beginning of July. School starts again shortly, something around the 4th of September, and the run's the 22nd. Do you have a plan to engage, how to engage the kids in that time span?
Well, part of it is getting everything in place, going live with online registration before the end of this month. And then being able to reach out to some of the schools, some of the coaches that I have contact with because of my other events, and being able to reach out to the other volunteers. So I'm not going to, and again, it's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah.
So when the kids come back in September, it is going to be saying, what can they get, or how can they get involved in a small way? And maybe it is only marshalling, or maybe it's only coming out or stuffing race packages, but it's going to be the baby steps to be able to build on for the following year. Because I can't educate them all in 3 weeks to take huge leadership roles, but they can get involved in some way, and then looking towards 2020, be able to get them more involved, if those are eager, or for those that are eager.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I feel it's really important we do engage the kids as much as possible. They are our future, and they will be taking things on, and they need to be prepared and to get them at this stage in their life, whether they are in elementary school or in high school, but that's the time to, and also just to get involved in how to volunteer in the community, how to participate in it, right? So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. We just got it late this afternoon, so maybe the answers are in here. But I'm just wondering about the funding for it. So from what I read, when it initially started, there was $10,000 of seed money which came from the town to start it out, and then after that, it seemed that there wasn't a requirement. But having said that, it seems front runners who ran it says that they no longer want to participate because funding is required. So I'm understanding from this that you're asking for $2,500 for this year, and then $1,250 for next year. Okay, and so I'm wondering if you can tell me about your optimistic view in terms on the financial aspect of things. What will you be able to do that front runners wasn't able to do to make it viable, do you think?
Well, part of it is going after or getting some of the sponsors that I have with my other events that have already, or a couple of them, as I shared with Randy and with Mike. Some have, or I said tentatively, what if, would you come on board? And they said yes. So it is getting those people on board from the get-go right now to be involved in being able to raise participation. So you had 419 finishers last year, which is not a lot, but being able to engage the corporate community to be able to say, we want you to come out and showcase your services and your business. I'm not asking you to pay money to have a booth at the event festival, but go out there and get 15 or 20 people to run. And being able to expand that way and virally through the town of Sydney. So it's sponsorship, it's registration, and negotiating some really good deals on medals and sponsorship. Part of one of my sponsors, who is a huge sponsor of the marathon, I said, okay, can I piggyback my order on this, which is going to be coming in the third week of September. So I'll just bump that up a little bit in terms of the order. So being able to make sure I can do that. And
what, in your budgeting, what do you think it will cost to run the event?
Well, I did talk to Nick or from Frontrunners and asked him what his actuals were, and he was basically a break even. And having organized Goddess Run, which is probably more similar to this compared to the marathon, it's an easily a $50,000 event. It could be.
Wow.
So if you look at everything all in. But if you half that, so you're probably looking at $25,000 for this year. I'd like to break even.
And you also mentioned some assistance for marketing and promotions from the town. What would that look like?
So part of it would be the website.
Okay.
Being able to do any newsletters, to be able to put things in there. I'd like you all to be running or walking. I'd like you to be, we can put you on a training program, but being able to have you out there and flying the flag for this event, because I want you to own this event. Yes, I'm managing it, but it's Sydney's event. So that's part of it. Some of the other promotions and would be through my Goddess database and inviting the 5,000 people there. This is 3 weeks prior to the marathon. We're having our 40th annual marathon this year. So being able to say, come out to Sydney by the Sea 5K or do the 8K and have it as your last tune-up run prior to the marathon.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett.
I think I'm probably going to do it this year. So.
Good. Which one?
The 8K.
Excellent.
I usually run a little lower, but Randy's a better runner than me. So, it mentions 2021 in here going forward, but it doesn't have an amount attached to it. So I was wondering if there is an estimate, or are you just thinking by that point you won't need any more town
Well,
and
the
Sydney
goal would be
contribution?
that I wouldn't need any more.
Great, thanks.
But I might change my mind.
Just a comment and a question. I appreciate your interest in not just 1 year, but in several years, and building the event in our community. And you have had significant success with other races, large and small, over the years. If this was to financially, in the next year or two, actually come above expenses, with your management company, are you able to keep aside that as sort of the seed money to the next year?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. We are considering it later on the agenda this evening. Thank you. So we'll now move to item 2, which is approval of our agenda. We have 3 amendments. One I've spoken to, which was the addition of the presentation we just had, and then we have 2 additional staff reports: 11F, the Sydney 5K and 8K road race, and 11G, the assignment of new incorporation. If I could Have a motion on an amended agenda, please.
So moved?
Second?
Any discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And look for a motion on the adoption of our minutes from the regular council meeting of June 24th.
Move adoption.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I'll move down to item 8A, which is the mayor's report. I do have a verbal report this evening. 3 things to touch on. The first is the Sydney Days and Canada Day celebrations, and really I just want to thank a whole bunch of people for the tremendous success that was had over those over the long weekend and the various celebrations. Hats off first to Peninsula Celebrations Chair President Marilyn Lovelace. Under her leadership and her group of volunteers, they organized an outstanding series of events over the weekend with many other community partners. And to town crier Kenny Podmore, who was not only town crier at a couple of the events, but was MC at other events as well. And having attended some of those events with Kenny, he remarked that in his 15 to 19 years of experience here, he hasn't seen crowds that we saw this year at many of the events. So that's certainly evidence of the success of the events. On Saturday night, I want to thank Mary Winspear Centre Executive Director Brad Edgett. The Mary Winspear Centre put Dinner on Rouge on in Beacon Park, and they had over 200 people in attendance, which was great. And that afternoon, thanks to Staff Sergeant Wayne Conley, our RCMP detachment commander, and Constable Megan DePass, they put on the first RCMP open house at the Mary Winspear Centre. Was well attended for a first event, and they look forward to doing that each year in conjunction with these other events over the weekend. On Sunday, we had the BIA host the Sydney Sidewalk Sale. 4 or 5 blocks closed on Beacon Avenue, and that was a success. Part of it, I think, was the beer gardens that was set up on 4th Street. There was activities throughout the afternoon in the band shell down on the waterfront, and then there was opening ceremonies in the evening. We were pleased to welcome from our sister cities, Anacortes, in Anacortes, Washington, their town crier, Richard Riddell, and their mayor, Laurie Gear, and was able to give Mayor Gear a bit of a tour of the town. And then, of course, we had the musical fireworks extravaganza just after 10 o'clock, and thanks to town staff, Manager Brian Robinson and their team, and also the fire department, because there's a safety component to those fireworks as well. So it was a spectacular show, and Mayor Gear from Anacortes, they know how to throw parades down in Anacortes. I'll speak to that in a moment, but she was hugely impressed with the finish to that fireworks display. Thanks to Tom Watson with Peninsula Celebrations. He organized the music on the 2 days, the Sunday and the Monday. Sydney Lions had their usual pancake breakfast on the Monday morning. Then we had our parade. Thanks to Parade Marshal Cam McClellan, it was an outstanding parade. Literally, there were people 8 and 9 deep at the intersections watching the parade this year, which I haven't seen before. So just a tremendous turnout. Thanks to Chief Brett Mickelson and his team for the Community Safety Building open house. There were hundreds there. I don't know how many hundreds, but many hundreds. And thanks to fellow council members who handed out, I understand, almost 2,000 ice creams to people who were, I would say, thirsty or hungry for that for that afternoon. And then we made our way over to the Family Fun Fair at the Iroquois Park, and that was just jammed with folks and a great success. And then that evening, thanks to Wayne Ruffle from Sleg Lumber, they have sponsored the Build-A-Boat contest for 34 years. And there was 10 entries this year, a huge turnout of thousands of people on the waterfront. And most of them floated this year, which was very impressive. In fact, there was one boat, and I can't remember its name, but they won the award. There's actually an award for first boat to sink, because boats sink every year. But they went out 3 times and sunk. And you know, the 4th time, they actually made the course out and back. So they won another award for that. But congratulations to all. It was a great time had by all. On July the 4th, I was pleased to attend with Kenny Podmore as town crier and our sister cities organization. We all headed over to Anacortes, Washington, and participated in their July 4th parade, which was a great success. And then they have a waterfront similar to ours and had great events in that evening as well. And then yesterday I was pleased to attend the Sydney bed races on Beacon Avenue, put on by the Sandwich Peninsula Hospital Foundation. Karen Morgan, their executive director, and Linda Hunter, their event organizer, believe it, they raised $52,000 for the hospital foundation in one afternoon, and a tremendous success was had there. The third item I'd like to touch base on is the timing of our council meetings. So as those in the audience may know, and any of those listening in, our council meetings have started at 7 p.m. for many, many years. Council generally meets 4 times a month, except for July and August. And our 2 committee of the whole meetings historically have started at 6 p.m. With presentations, but there is also public participation now at certain committee of the whole meetings. And our council meetings are at 7 p.m. And so, having discussed with my fellow councillors, with staff, we would like to give consideration to having our council meetings start at 6 p.m. And we'll bring this back sometime in the fall. What we will do is to gain your input, the public's input, is in the next edition of Town Talk, which will be coming out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have a little article speaking to that, and we certainly welcome your feedback on your preferences and considerations for that. So that concludes my mayor's remarks. I'll now turn to my council colleagues, who we do have a number of staff reports. I'll start with Councillor Ventura.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Let's just like to provide a couple of brief updates for the information of council and citizens with respect to 2 of my liaison portfolios. The first being the Panorama Recreation Center. Thank you, Sandy. Mayor McNeil Smith and myself are commissioners at the Recreation Commission, and one of the endeavors that I wanted to share with the group is with respect to major capital project currently under consideration. And so the identifier for this relates to the fact that within the CRD, the Panorama Recreation Center is the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, contributing 39% of emissions associated with CRD facilities. And so that's certainly been very on the forefront of the minds of commission members and management at the Panorama, who have come up with sources of waste heat, which is generated from the building itself, which could be used to recover energy. And so the project under consideration specifically relates to dehumidifier, and this is a device used in the arenas. Currently natural gas fired system, which is approaching the end of its life cycle. Some options that came before the commission included replacing this unit with 2 smaller gas units, 2 electrical units, or by an energy recovery dehumidifier system. And interestingly, a somewhat smaller sample of this was done at the Oak Bay Arena. And so where the technology and the utilization of a dehumidifier in this process is fairly new, it has recently been exercised in a smaller venue here within the CRD. The existing dehumidifier releases 761 kilowatts of heat energy into the atmosphere, and that is waste that can be captured by a recovery system and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of coming up with this suggestion, there were other capital options reviewed, which could probably have similar results, if not better in terms of the results. If you look at the capital costs, however, of a wind solution, a solar solution, or this refrigeration solution at $2.8 million, it's the refrigeration option that the commission has instructed staff to zero in on because of that cost differential on the capital side. The estimated savings, and this is just based on natural gas use essentially, is approximately $81,000 per year. And so that heat that is recovered through this system would be used to heat spaces in the building, as well as hot water for facilities, etc. And doing so, reducing the amount of natural gas used currently to fulfill those functions. The energy recovery dehumidifier system would be estimated to yield a reduction of 364 greenhouse gas tons a year. And one of the things I noted that Oak Bay had done this, but that because this is larger in scale, perhaps a little higher profile project in that sense, very, very keen to see this go out and look for grant support. BC Hydro has expressed some interest in participating at that level, which would, of course, help limit the capital cost of the project, and I think set a standard as well for similar projects in the province. And so the commission at this point has asked for staff to proceed in the basis of their 2020 budget to look to include this project, which means that we'll have further opportunity to give consideration of this prior to its final approval. So I wanted to share that bit of insight from the Recreation Commission. And my other piece, before I see if anyone has questions, was just around the Memorial Park Society. And the Memorial Park Society is the body responsible for the trust, which oversees Blue Heron Park as well as the Mary Winspear Center. Wanted to express my personal appreciation to Mr. Richard Paquette, whom I recruited to join the board of directors at the Memorial Park Society a little over 7 years ago. Richard had stepped down from the role of chair of the MPS, and at the recent annual general meeting, Sheila Fay, who's a Sydney resident, became chair of the MPS, and Sheila has also had a role previously as chair of the foundation, which is a fundraising vehicle to help fundraise for capital projects at the Mary Winspear Center and other facilities and assets under the MPS umbrella. Interesting to note, Brad Edgett, who is the executive director of the Mary Winspear Center and was also a board member of the SBIA. Brad, at the SBIA's recent AGM, became chair of the SBIA, and you'll recall that Susan Samosko, with thanks to her years of service, recently stepped down from the SBIA, along with the executive director, Donna Petrie, with thanks for her service. Morgan Shaw had replaced Donna there at the SBIA. So with thanks to those community volunteers and leaders, I'll turn it over to perhaps the mayor if you had any further comment on that PRC item as a fellow commissioner, or council for questions.
No, thank you for the excellent presentation. I think there was the consultant gave a number just to put the greenhouse gas reduction in perspective. There was a number of vehicles that it would take off the road in a year. It was 115 or 20 equivalent.
Yeah, correct. It was right around 115, as I recall, and I think they'd come up with some data from BC Ferries and sort of their conversion to natural gas as well, and using those metrics to compare. But you're correct.
So quite a significant project, and it is coming about because of end of cycle of a particular piece of equipment that needs to be replaced, and so it's an opportunity to make an investment and see this this climate action move forward as well. Does any other members, Councillor Duncan?
I just had questions for Councillor Ventura about his report, if I may. Two things. So the first one, the MPS is for Blue Heron Park as well as Mary Winspear. I hear a lot about the planning and for capital for Mary Winspear. For Blue Heron Park, do they have projects in mind? Is there money that's being set aside for restoration in there? I've seen trail working kind of recently, but.
Yeah, thank you. Blue Heron Park, components of the park are under lease, and so a portion of property is leased to School District 63, approximately where you see the running track and that section of the field. But the lion's share of the field space up above, behind Parklands, is leased to Peninsula Soccer Association. And I think the current wisdom is such that as Peninsula Soccer looks to try and secure funding, potentially for turf field, that the Memorial Park Society will watch and see and offer what support they can with respect to that endeavor. But you're right, certainly the trails received a bit of a facelift recently, and they will continue to make sure that those are well maintained.
And the second one, regarding Panorama's rec center, you said they'd identified like a number of waste heat possibilities, and so the first one that's come up obviously is the dehumidifier. So what fraction of the I guess leakage that they see is recoverable? Will the dehumidifiers, like, this is the largest one, or half of them, or?
Yeah, good question. It's my understanding that it's the most significant, but also as the mayor noted, it happens that this particular appliance, this piece of equipment, is at the end of its life cycle within the next 2 years, and so it made it the most near-term target, if you will, for this undertaking.
And I believe the greenhouse gas reduction will be approximately half of the total currently?
Yeah, I don't
Something
recollect the
maybe
percentage, but you're
close
correct.
to
I know it was 363 tons of greenhouse gas emission being removed from the atmosphere.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. So I recall when we did a tourage of the sewage treatment facility that they talked about a heat exchanger that had been put in place that was meant to transfer heat up to Panorama to help with the facilities there. And my recollection is it either was unutilized or not utilized because they thought the cost of it really wasn't that much cheaper than natural gas. So I guess what I'm wondering is if its costs about the same, but perhaps it's would have fewer greenhouse gas emissions using that excess capacity from the sewage treatment facility. Is that something that they've considered taking another look at?
Yeah, and I'll excuse me, defer to my council colleagues to an extent, because I know Councillor Wainwright, through his familiarity with the wastewater plant, will have a comment, as well as perhaps the mayor from his previous term on the PRC. My understanding is that yes, that was initially the intent, but the costs to facilitate that were prohibitive and remain as such in the current climate. And so, if anyone knows differently or can elaborate, please feel free.
Councillor Wainwright.
The facility was originally planned that it would serve 3 facilities and not just Panorama. Also the Federal Agricultural Station and the nearby school. But neither of those had their capital funding approved to allow the hookup. So it wound up being a single customer, as it were, and not a cost-effective kind of operation. They are using the waste heat to heat the pool, and there's an agreement between Panorama and the treatment plant that they will charge the same as the natural gas cost. And that's because, well, why would Panorama pay more than natural gas? They're set up to use that. And from the treatment plant side, they need at least one customer, so they're willing to match whatever it would cost Panorama not to use it. Anyway, that's the current status of it.
I just wonder if there's, now that they're getting serious about greenhouse emissions, whether that's, I don't know, whether there's additional capacity that they could use from there to funnel into other things.
That was considered.
Oh, it was?
Yep.
Oh,
was considered.
okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. And Councillor Fallon.
Thank
I just want to do a quick short update from the last Artsy meeting, and they've got a new website up, and it's actually it's very good. They've got their artist profiles on it. It's very easy to link on to the artists and then look at what the artist is producing. Also their events, at which point I will just quickly say they've got a Lantern Festival coming up on August 24th. And for everybody who was at the parade, you will have seen that at the beginning of the parade, just behind, I think, the councils, we had Artsy coming along, and they had quite the lanterns that they had been working on, and they've also got some great workshops. So if you go onto their artsy website, and they've got a number of free workshops that you can come and help repair lanterns and work on building it. And for anybody who's feeling creative, you can also sign up for a workshop to build your own. But I'm looking forward to the Lantern Festival. I have missed it in years past, but it's marked on my calendar, and I really would urge anybody else. It's from 7:30 to 10 p.m. on August 24th. So from there, the board's also working very vigorously in looking at sustainability, financial sustainability, and so they're working on funding, contributions, donations, planned giving, that sort of thing. And they've linked into an organization called Imagine Canada, which has quite a good helpline of how to get funding and how to go about it. So they're working quite vigorously on ensuring that they've got that. It's not to suggest that they're not still looking for municipal funding, but that's just another funding stream that they want to ensure. And there was some talk a few months back regarding an art gallery up at the airport, and they're still hammering out details with the airport there. It's a gallery and a retail sales offer. It's probably going to be a bit difficult for Artsy, unfortunately, to participate in that, because the airport is looking to have that staffed 7 days a week, about 12 hours a day. And with a volunteer group, that's going to be difficult to do that on a consistent basis. So it may be something that the Victoria Art Gallery will be doing rather than Artsy participating in that. And the Spring Studio Tour was very successful, and they've already got 10 artists signed up for the Fall Studio Tour. And I was curious because I noticed that when I had gone around to some of the studios, there wasn't a lot of encouragement for sales. And I said, isn't this sort of counterproductive? You're getting beat. They said, no, actually the focus is not to do the studio tour and have sales, although sales do happen. The idea is to introduce the artists and their work to people. And so people, because in most cases this is going into someone's private space, their yard, their art studio, their property, and they don't want people to feel obligated to make a purchase. So the focus is it's basically an opportunity to see their work. So it's very successful, and they're looking forward to their fall one. And I think that pretty well. Oh, they've also got the Senkoten? Sencha. Okay, I really got that one wrong. An anonymous donor purchased a dictionary for them, which they're going to be putting on display for use as well as display. And the donor is very generous, is also creating a plinth for them to display the dictionary. So that was a nice piece of good news story. So that wraps up my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that wraps up our councillor reports for this. Oh, Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. So just update from the Chamber of Commerce, a few things that they're working on. They're working with staff from our 3 municipalities on the peninsula with the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure to get more signage on the Pat Bay High, directing people to local breweries and distilleries. And so they expect to see that sometime this summer. They've met with the new SBIA Executive Director, and it sounds like they're exploring opportunities for collaboration and working together, so that's great to hear. They're also working with BC Ferries and our MLA Adam Olson about using Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure land that is behind the Chamber's offices for a trailer drop. So apparently it's a big issue with BC Ferries that when there's delays or cancellations, they've got these big rigs with no place to go and hang out or drop their trailers. So they're looking to see if they can provide support for that. So I guess the good thing for Sydney would be is if that gets developed, there'd be a lot of truckers perhaps parking their rigs there and then coming into Sydney for meals or accommodation or other services. So that's something that they're working on. They're also started planning for the initiatives that were approved by the 3 councils. That's $60,000. And just to refresh our memories, there was a industry-focused tour, career education for local schools, and workshop for home-based business. So they're going to, it sounds like they're going to combine the industry focused tour with the career education aspect. So they're looking at a situation of putting a bunch of kids on buses and then taking them around to the different industries to see what a machine shop looks like and what sort of work takes place there. They're aiming to have that event and the home-based workshop probably in February. The home-based workshop will likely be a one-day event. They're looking at the option of possibly providing daycare so that home-based businesses, quite a few mums or dads who have kids at home, to remove that barrier to them for attending. They also discussed the need to have some performance measures in place to measure the success of the projects. So if any of you have ideas on, what you would like to see at the end of that in terms of how would you measure success, let me know and I'll pass those along. And I guess the other thing I'll mention is that, so the money that was allocated, they've used that money to fund hire a person to organize these 3 different events. So there will be some costs to the participants for the home-based business workshop, but they're trying to make those just basic to cover costs. And yeah, that's it, unless there's any questions.
Thank you. I'll now move on. We don't have any committee reports, so I'll move on to staff reports. We have several. The first is 11A, item 11A. It's our 2018 annual report, and we have a report dated June 21st.
I'll move the Town of Sydney 2018 annual report be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Comment? I just want to thank all senior staff, all departments for their presentation and their staff report. To the public, I'd like to say that going to the website, there's countless pages of information about the Town of Sydney, about the services that they provide, and certainly can go and find a particular service. But for a snapshot of what your taxes do in terms of the broad range of services provided by the town through the many different departments, the annual report I think is a great starting place. It really encapsulates in a year the activities across the departments. It shows the strategic plan that council and staff had at the time, the accomplishments that have been made with regards to that document, and also looking forward in terms of priorities. So thank you again to staff, and I hope the public finds the report informative. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I'll now move to item 11B. We have a proposed regional concept of operation for emergencies. Staff report dated July 2nd.
I'll move the recommendation that the Chief Administrative Officers be authorized to sign the memorandum of understanding that supports the regional concept of operations during events of regional emergency significance.
Second.
Discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions. So am I correct in assuming, I guess a question through you to staff, that this has been shared with other local stakeholders like the RCMP, the fire, ambulance, and PMO folks as well?
If I can, through the mayor, to Councillor O'Keefe, certainly it's been shared with PMO and the fire department. In fact, the fire department, as the emergency coordinators, have been directly involved and are very supportive of this project.
Okay, good. And so this new protocol will fit in nicely, will dovetail with existing processes and...
Yeah, absolutely. That's the intent, is that it becomes a seamless part of the overall emergency management plans. As indicated in the report, all municipalities are required to have emergency plans in place. This isn't meant to supersede those plans. It's meant to basically add to the value of regional collaboration in the event of a major emergency.
I just had a question on, there was, in the flow chart in the back, it talked about on page 11, the event notification and activation decision. I just needed clarity on the first decision point. It says, is there an existing policy guideline to address the issue? So I guess I'm trying to understand, like, in what circumstances wouldn't we use this? So it asks, is there an existing policy guideline to address this emergency event? And so there's either a yes or a no. And so I'm just wondering what would be an example of when we wouldn't use this then? I mean, the only thing I could think of would be, I don't know, like say, for example, forest fires. Is there already a protocol in place that?
I mean, I don't know. I'll leave it to Mr. Humble, but I think, you know, severity of the incident is going to come into play in terms of the level of engagement with, you know, our local emergency plan, but also this area regional emergency plan. Mr. Humble?
Yeah, I
Oh,
believe.
yeah, I get
I believe
that.
it refers to, and again, I'd have to look closely, but I mean, I think what we're talking about is major events such as an earthquake. I think it identified perhaps a major heat event as being one as well. So again, we're talking about events of such significance that again it crosses regional boundaries.
Yeah, and that's why I was just confused because it talks about, okay, so there is a regional event that requires coordination, but in some instances this process would be activated and others it wouldn't. So
yeah, so an event where it may not be activated would be potentially a local event where, say, there's a hazardous waste spill on the highway, for example, or within the community itself. You may not be looking at a regional activation.
okay.
Did you have another question, Councillor?
Yeah, no, it's just fuzzy to me because.
Okay.
Anyways,
You could follow up with. You could
yeah,
follow up
I'll
with staff after.
follow up separately.
Okay.
And I just wondered whether there might be any cost savings from this, like in terms of training. So I noted that municipalities that signed on board to this MOU, that there would be access to training and resources. And I notice in our emergency planning, we also plan for training. So is there any of that might be covered now by the province that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be additional cost savings per se in training. I mean, we still have an obligation to undertake training for our own municipal staff, our own local municipal EOC training, but certainly in terms of training for the chief administrative officers, for the emergency coordinators who would be involved, you know, this is essentially additional training, so it's a positive thing in that respect. In terms of overall cost savings, though, I wouldn't say there's going to be cost savings. We still have a responsibility at the local emergency level to make sure that we're prepared as a municipality.
And this final one, I think. So I noticed in the list of partners, so there's local governments and First Nations, but no federal agencies like D&D and the Coast Guard, the Airport Authority. How do they kind of fit in with this, or do they?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they would actually fit in with this. I know it's not. I know they're not mentioned specifically. I think again, it's relative to local government agencies and First Nations, but in terms of you know, the involvement of VAA, say BC Ferries, that kind of thing. Again, I think that's done more at a local level.
So that would be covered under our PMO?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, if I may, to the CAO. with respect to the financial statement, it would appear as if the reserves, taking a look at 2018 revenue versus expenses, that the reserves would have grown by a further $51,000, so about $66,000 in reserves. Is there a defined purpose? I know it notes it will carry forward for reserves. Do you anticipate the requisition amount perhaps being reduced at some point in the CRD rec? And that requisition, is it the 13 municipalities included in that? Any comments around that?
You got me.
Okay,
I don't know.
thank you.
I can get back to you with additional information if you want regarding the overall
It'd be interesting to
financing,
see,
but-
as the reserve grew substantially as a result of 2018's year end, what the intent is now that it sits at some $66,000. Thank you.
Okay, without it,
One more little thing. So,
Councillor O'Keefe?
yeah, I'm just wondering whether our emergency program bylaw, 1936, does it need amendment because we're adopting this, or is this just sort of an add-on?
No, I don't believe it does at all.
Okay.
Again, this is a memorandum of understanding. We're not bound by it, and there's no
Okay.
requirements to amend
Okay.
that bylaw.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. I'll now call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Move to item 11C, which is the removal of a pad-mounted transformer on the town parking lot at 9821 3rd Street that services the Stones Throw Strata development, and we have a staff report dated July 3rd.
I will move the recommendation that $27,090 from proceeds of the sale of the fire hall parking lot be allocated for the town's 50% portion of the costs associated with the removal of the pad-mounted transformer that is situated on the current parking lot at 9821 3rd Street, and that any required agreements, easements associated with this project may be executed by the mayor and chief administrative officer.
Second.
Discussion, Councillor Garnett?
Just if I may, Mr. Mayor, question through to staff. The transformer was one that was selected for art coverage in commission when we did that competition, blanketed with some kind of art on there, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen to it, that art, when we dismantle that transformer pad.
I anticipate we'll have to look for a new location for the art. Is that one covered with art right
Yeah.
now? It is.
I just
yeah.
took a walk by there
Yeah,
yesterday.
we'll look for a new location. I would anticipate.
We're still going to
Yeah,
use it. Okay,
yeah,
great.
we have the art and the art piece, and it'd be easy to fabricate something for another transformer.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. A question through you to staff, Mr. Mayor. I'm still trying to understand how we just know about this now, like that pad was there when they purchased the property. So it's just coming to light now that, so they never, so the purchaser never identified that as an issue until now? Is that my understanding?
Through the mayor to Councillor O'Keefe, yeah, they were certainly aware that it was an issue, and it was identified in the purchase and sale agreement, and they acknowledged that it was there, but it was never addressed in terms of how it would ultimately be addressed. There was certainly a need that it would need to be addressed at some point. I guess there was a sense that perhaps BC Hydro would step up and look at addressing it, possibly Stones Throw Strata addressing it. It's certainly not the purchaser's issue or the purchaser's problem. They purchase the property knowing it's there. It's an encumbrance on the property. There's no easements or covenants associated with it. So, they essentially want it off their property. They certainly don't want it to impede the development. They're prepared to locate the conduit on the property. They're willing to accommodate a junction box on the property. They're prepared to provide covenants and or sort of right-of-ways and easements to accommodate it. So they are stepping up and assisting with it. But to be honest, it's not their issue. It's the town's issue and BC Hydro's issue, to be honest. So at the end of the day, the town has a level of responsibility to try to address it.
And so are we aware of any other, so I gather this is just one of those things that has fallen between the cracks?
yeah.
Somebody
Exactly,
years ago
yeah.
just didn't register it?
Back in the day, staff dropped the ball by allowing
Okay.
it to get there and not having an easement or right of way on the property.
Is there any chance that there's other such things around the town, or?
Possibly,
Yeah,
yeah, there could be. I mean, at the end of the day, these are things that, just eventually show up. And I'll be honest, this happened, a number of years ago, and the staff that are here today weren't involved in that particular project, so.
and
Yeah.
so presumably we have changes to our procedures to,
Definitely,
Make sure.
staff are extremely thorough when it comes to dealing with these things,
Yeah.
and the staff that we have. But sometimes things get missed and balls get dropped, and this is a case where that happened.
yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Humble. Any other comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to item 11D, which is the Galleran Road Sidewalk Project, and a staff report dated July the 2nd.
I move that staff be directed to complete the detailed design drawings for the Galleran Road improvements, locating the sidewalk at the back side of the proposed curb, and include the sidewalk construction with the proposed road works scheduled for 2023. To proceed with relocating the existing 2 community mailboxes on Galleran Road to the east side of the street, and paint a white fog line on the east side of Galleran Road from John Place to Mills Road West.
Second.
Discussion? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I saw this, I immediately felt, ooh, because I remember this was one of the first things I did as a councillor, was to say I felt bad about, after going to the west side and hearing how they felt, they were kind of left out and not part of Sydney, and they didn't get any good infrastructure. And I thought, oh, now we're going to be delaying a sidewalk, when we knew that we'd told them as of the west side area plan that we'd be building more sidewalks, and they would be upset. And then I see we sent out 400 mail outs and had a open house and spent about $5,000 and 60 hours of staff time to do extra consultation. And 18 people gave feedback. I understand it, perhaps just to confirm that we didn't get any digital responses on the survey or by email. 2? Okay, so the 18 includes those 2? That's in addition to. So I'm looking at it and thinking, well, on the one hand, at least we know that they won't be upset that their sidewalk is delayed. Nobody cared. And the 18 people who responded said that was their preferred option. I'm guessing they looked at the costs as well. And so I don't know whether we saved $75,000 by spending $5,000 to get consultation, because otherwise council was of the opinion that perhaps we should put in that $80,000 sacrificial pathway, or whether we spent $5,000 extra because the original staff report was simply to schedule it for 2023. And I'm wondering how this will influence our commitments for increased engagement, and how we will be factoring that as we go forward. It's kind of, it's not really something I'm looking for an answer for, but it was definitely something that I wanted to highlight with respect to this. When we hear that what we want is more consultation, and when we try to provide that, we still don't get any feedback, and we end up going with the original proposal in the first place. So, thank you.
Thank you. While a measure might be the number of responses that come back, the fact that the information went out to 400 households, the information is received, and perhaps upon receipt of the information, they don't see the need to, further engage. So I think it's extremely worthwhile for us to have public engagement as we did, and I think the people who did attend were certainly impressed with the presentation that we had from staff, and for the opportunity to ask questions in a group session versus in the past when it was generally a one-on-one at those sorts of open houses. So personally, I'd be very much in favor of us continuing to engage on particular issues, and we'll certainly learn from them as we go along. Any other comment, Councillor O'Keefe?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know it's not a lot of response, but the fact that they got the information, and if we hadn't done it, I think maybe we would have heard a lot more complaints from people. But to me, it says they looked at it, hopefully, read it, and thought, okay, I'm okay with that, and then they threw it in the recycle bin. But at least they got the opportunity to be informed about what was going on and have a say if they wish to. And it sounds like they had lots of different ways to do it. So I still think it's a worthwhile investment.
Councillor Garnett?
Yeah, I totally believe it was a worthwhile endeavor, having been there and spoken to the residents. And I have to give kudos to staff as well. You were able to convince Canada Post after first denying it. The second time you went and they actually moved it. As an employee of that company, I am absolutely amazed that you got them to move. So well done. I know that was one of the greater concerns of the residents who live in that area, having to cross over that street, which is quite busy. So, and there are a lot of senior people in that area. So congratulations and thank you.
Seeing no other comment, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Move to item 11E, which is with regards to the public pathway on 8th Street to Bevan Avenue, which is in between our community safety building and the Dairy Queen property, and we have a staff report dated July the 2nd.
I'll move the recommendation that the 8th Street to Bevan Avenue pathway project be added to the 2019 capital budget with a budget of $70,000 with funding from the land sale reserve.
And second.
Any discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through you to staff. I'm just wondering how much is currently in the land sale reserve, and how will this impact on any other planned expenditures coming out of that reserve? Do we know?
I think there's there's no finance folks here, but I think there is money still in the land sale reserve from the Henry Avenue sale, and I want to say that that I know there was something that was actually funded or approved for funding to come from that land sale. I just can't recall what it is, but is it the HVAC? Yeah. Okay. So the HVAC system for the library. Yeah. So I think there's still sufficient funding left in that reserve for this, and I don't know how much is remaining.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you. Through you to staff, how are we doing with staff time for the project, the actual time of our staff to do the project?
To do the capital works? Yeah. I'll let Bruce speak to that maybe.
Through the mayor to Councillor Fowler. The design work has actually been done by consultants, so we're at about 9%, so we should expect design drawing shortly. And I know Public Works is generally available for this type of infill work, so I don't see an issue with it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll call a question. All those in favor? The motion carries unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to item 13, which is we have one item of correspondence.
11F.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have it right here before me. So we have the two additional items, 11F, the Sydney 5K and 8K road race. Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. And a recommendation from staff.
I'll move that council accept the proposal from Choice Events Limited for the Sydney 5K and 8K running race event as outlined in this report, and that staff work with the proponent to continue making this event a success.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I'm generally in favor of this, but I guess what's rolling around in my head is that, you know, last week we reduced the amount that we were given to Torque Masters, which is a sort of a long-standing event, and we weren't too keen to take it out of the Economic Development Fund. So I'm thinking about that as I look at this. I guess the reason I will support it for this time is because I guess it's, in my mind, someone new taking it over, sort of rejuvenating it, maybe doing things a little bit different. So I'm willing to entertain some funds towards that for this year, and then a smaller amount for next year with the goal that it would eventually be self-supporting.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. I understand, Councillor O'Keefe, your perspective, and it's something that did run through my mind as well. I looked at it this way: is we had 2 years of with the one race organizer, and we're now going to another race organizer who's coming in at a much lower dollar value than the first one did originally. So I get that whole part, but I think we have to give them some help to try to get this going. The other part is, I think it's part of the identity and profile of Sydney. We are a very active community, and I think it's important for us to stick our neck out a little bit and try to get something like this going and make a success of it. And I think the third year in, going to a new organizer is hard, but I like the proposal that the Goddess Run proponent came with, Kathy Noel. I love it seemed to be much more inclusive of the community and also much more inclusive of encouraging the kids to participate. I would like to give her the benefit of the doubt and try to make this one work.
Thank you. Any other comment? So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And we have item 11G, the addition, the assignment of new incorporation regarding the sale of the fire hall lands, and a report from staff.
I'll move the recommendation that staff be authorized to consent to the assignment to FHD Nominee Limited once satisfied with the form and content of the assignment agreement.
Second.
Discussion. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. And I'm trying to understand the rationale for them wanting to do this. So, question through you to staff, whether we have a sense for that. I recognize that, the lawyers say they're still on the hook, that everything will still go ahead. But I guess things that rumble around in my mind is, what do we know about the new entity and its capacity to make good on any funds that might be payable to us in the event that, say, the sale didn't go ahead, or in terms of the insurance agreement that was just put to us last week for the early demolition of the building. So,
If I can, through the mayor, to Councillor O'Keefe. So again, I'm not a lawyer. I have to trust our municipal solicitors, and they're indicating to me that this is relatively common. It's contemplated in the purchase and sale agreement. It's indicated in the purchase and sale agreement that this kind of assignment can't be withheld unreasonably by the municipality. I would anticipate it has something to do with taxation. There's taxation reasons behind it. And again, I'm not I don't pretend to know the sort of the specific reasons behind it, but I understand it's quite common. And they're simply a subsidiary of Fire Hall Developments Limited, which is owned by the two proponents, which is Dan Robbins and Fraser McCall. So nothing is really changing. It's just the one subsidiary that's being created. They're still bound by the development permit and the development variance permit that's registered on title. So nothing really changes. Basically the folks that are undertaking the construction is still the principal proponents of Fire Hall Developments Limited.
So in the event of, say, default, or they decided not to go through, we would still have recourse under the original company as well?
Yeah, it's my understanding.
Okay.
Again, the lawyers have expressed no concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move to item 13A, the request for letter of support, proposal for multi-use trail development. And we have a letter from the Nature Trail Society dated June 21st.
I'll move the recommendation that we provide a letter of support.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing that I'm wondering about this, I support the idea of more trails, but the one thing that concerned me was the bottom of the page. It says, "We acknowledge the history of this location as being misaligned with Indigenous rights and title to the territory, and understand if our Indigenous partners decline to attend." So it just sort of set off an alarm bell for me that perhaps our First Nations might not be supportive of this, and if that's the case, I don't know that I would be keen to provide a letter of support. I also note on the last page of the handout, in the final bullet, it says, "As a first step, the NTS seeks to consult applicable local governments and BC parks on their respective trails parks plans for the aforementioned parks." So I just wondered, in terms of consultation, what consultation had taken place with local First Nations as well. So I guess for me, just those are things that concern me, that they seem to think that there's an issue here. So I guess before I would agree to provide a letter of support, I'd want to know that there was support from local First Nations as well.
Any other discussion? I'll make my comments that I won't be supporting this motion, in part because of what Councillor O'Keefe brought forward, but the sequence of events here is I've been aware of this organization. They've certainly done some good things. They have some well-known community partners for some of the things they've done in the past. I went to their website. However, they're asking us for this letter of support and then asking us to send our contact information by July 15th so that they will send a draft of the proposal. This is a fairly significant proposal. They're looking to connect 200 kilometers of trail. They don't want to build 200 kilometers of new trail. They want to connect a lot of existing trails, which would establish a network of 200 kilometers. But they don't even have this project on their website. And I would sooner see, and they're asking for this letter of support that is going to the BC Real Estate Foundation. So that's one of several sponsors that they have. Are we going to get a request for a letter of support every time they go to a sponsorship organization requesting sponsorship? So I would just, I would have preferred a presentation, or I would have preferred seeing the proposal that they're suggesting they will send to us after we give them the letter of support. So I won't be supporting at this time and would welcome if they want to provide additional information in the future. Any other discussion?
No, just a question to you, Mr. Mayor. Have they come to the CRD or briefed the CRD on this?
Not that I'm aware.
Oh, okay.
Although they have worked with the CRD. Councillor Duncan.
Should this motion fail to pass, I would like to make another motion about writing a letter to explain our reasons for not supporting to them, because I think that being able to open the dialogue, particularly with the First Nations, is something that I would like us to be on record as bringing up.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Failed.
Sorry?
Failed unanimously.
Sorry. The motion is defeated. Thank you.
I move that we provide a letter to the Nature Trail Society explaining the 2 points listed. Hopefully Sandy will be able to get this by Councillor O'Keefe and Mayor McNeil Smith, explaining our rationale for not sending a letter of support, i.e. that we would like to see more consultation with First Nations and a more detailed proposal before lending any support.
Second.
Discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? This motion passes unanimous. I'll now move to item 14, our bylaws. We have
Third. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
We have bylaw number 2174, which is a zoning amendment number 38 to allow the retail sale of recreational cannabis. We have a staff report dated July 3rd, and under the recommendation we have 4 separate motions that will need to be moved.
I'll move that the staff report be received.
Second.
Discussion? Councillor Ventura.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, please. So if I may, to staff then, I recognize that we're receiving this for information, and obviously I have no problem with receiving information. Just wanted to clarify a couple of points. Within, on the final page of the staff report, bullet number 5, where it lists, in addition to newspapers, advertisements, staff proposed to send letters providing an overview of the proposed changes, and it lists a series of contacts. I hadn't seen a reference to Sydney North Saanich RCMP in here elsewhere. Could they be included within that list of number 5?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ventura, yes, they could. Staff have been in communication with the Sydney North Saanich RCMP throughout the development of these bylaws and policies, so they're aware of them, but we can include them in the list, yes.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, the references to bylaw 2175, where it sets the fees for both cannabis and liquor applications as follows. I guess as a point of order, would you like me to comment on those here or under 14B in the agenda when this is brought forward?
If it's just a comment, I mean, if it's going to influence whether we receive the report or not, perhaps you would, just a point of order through to staff, we can comment under when the bylaw is introduced and given first reading? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, under 14B. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor O'Keefe?
Just a question. So this is a lot of information and work that staff is doing on this, and I'm just wondering whether we're tracking our time on this, and in terms of the UBCM had sent out a survey wanting to know, in terms of our costs, what sort of costs and time that we're spending on anything related to implementation of cannabis in our jurisdiction. So
I'm sorry, and how's that pertaining to the motion?
I guess it's not pertaining to the motion. It's just a general question. I'll let it go then.
Okay. Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. I had just one comment. It was under this in the discussion number 5, where they've mentioned, which I think Councillor Ventura was mentioning about discussing further down in 14B, but where they said that, hold on, I'm losing my spot, that even after they become legal at senior government levels, and the federal government has indicated that some edible products are expected to become available in 2019. I went to look this up and just confirm where that status was. So the Canada Gazette has published, as of June 26th, the full regulations amending the cannabis regulations of the Cannabis Act. And they say that will, not may, but will go into effect on October 17th of this year. And the limitations are solely on whether the edible product contains ethyl alcohol and the percentage content of ethyl alcohol therein. So it looks like this is happening, and that was the most recent one that I could find. So.
Okay, thank you. I'll call a question on the staff report being received. All those in favor? The motion carries unanimous. We now have the second item.
I'll move that the bylaw be introduced and given first reading.
Second.
Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you. With respect to fees and deposits, then if I may, to staff, the suggestion here is a $100 fee for staff assessment of a license application. That $100 is based, I presume, on anticipated staff time going into that review. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ventura, yes, that's based on recovering the cost of the staff time.
Okay. Instinctively,
Sorry, are we dealing with bylaw 2174?
Yeah, Councillor O'Toole, that question might have, I realized the staff report dealt with both bylaw number 2174 and the next bylaw 2175.
yeah, I'm reading from 2175. I beg your pardon.
That's
Okay, thank you.
thank you for the clarification. Any other comment on Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. So pertaining to the discussion point number 5 in the discussion paper, right now in bylaw number 2174, we have an addition 2.C.6 to add section 4.1.10.6 as follows: the processing, distribution, and retail sale of cannabis edible products. I would move to strike that current addition so that we don't have to do that later.
Just a point of order, we're going to do that in the next motion, Councillor Duncan? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking from the staff recommendation to do that before the first reading, and we were doing, so, sorry.
So we will proceed with item 2 first, and then we can, we'll attend to that in the next item, number 3. Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. We're now on to point number 3, that's section 2C. And if you wish to proceed, Councillor Duncan.
What I said before. You got that, Janie Drew? Yeah. So to remove point 2.C.6 from the bylaw.
Just for the public's benefit, whether you're here this evening or watching by video at some stage, when the bylaw was drafted, it included excluding the processing, distribution, and retail sale of cannabis edible products. So that would have been prohibited in this new bylaw that we're passing or moving forward this evening. However, with staff's further investigation in terms of the federal government proceeding to actually legalize those edible products, it's determined that we don't need to incorporate that into the bylaw at this time because those products are currently prohibited and we don't need to speak to that in the bylaws. So we're doing some housekeeping on a bylaw that we're introducing. Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarity on the motion. Was the motion to make that amendment and then give second reading as amended, or was it just to amend the bylaw and then we'll need yet another motion?
Yeah, so my intent was to do as staff recommended in that point 5, and which was to strike that before first reading so that we would not have it having to do that later. Since we know it's going to become legal in October, there is no sense in putting it in.
In the agenda package, there's a suggestion that we do that and give second reading as amended. Page 2 of the agenda.
Yep.
So I'm just questioning whether you wanted to make that motion or the one that was in the staff report.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the...
If we could go to the agenda.
Okay. You were to second reading given as amended. Okay, sorry, because I'm looking at the point 5 where it says to do it prior to considering first reading. So I was wanting to move that before we did first reading. and then at the bottom, okay. All right.
So can you clarify the motion you would like to move, Councillor Duncan? Or if staff could read the motion, please? Thank you.
Basically to move that section 2C, the processing, distribution, or retail sale of cannabis edible products, be removed from bylaw 2174 and given second reading as amended.
We have a seconder?
I'll second.
Discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And item 4.
I'll move that staff be instructed to advertise for a public hearing.
Second.
Discussion, call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to item 14B, which is bylaw number 2175, which is with regards to the cannabis and liquor licensing fee. That is to establish fees for cannabis and liquor license applications.
I'll move the bylaw be introduced and given first reading.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you. So I think, thank you very much. This was, my first question was clarified that the $100 for a staff assessment is meant to address staff time. My next question relates then to the $250 in the case of an application to amend an existing license or an application for special occasion license. The special occasion licenses are one-off, single use, as I understand, correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Rintoul, yes, that's correct.
and you find the staff time in this case exceeds what it would to do an initial assessment, the $100 is above.
Yes, the intent of the $100 staff assessment fee is more for if a manager or owner of a premises comes in to get an occupant load calculation done by a building official. That's the intent of the $100 staff assessment. That can come in unrelated to an application for a retail store or a liquor establishment. Unrelated to a new application, that is. Sorry.
Thank you. In the suggestion for these fees, I do recollect previously Council had a report before which included some of the application fees for a new license that were being contemplated in other municipalities, particularly around retail cannabis applicants. Where did $450 fare in that range? I think there were some significantly higher and some were in keeping with their standard licensing fees. How does $450 fall in that range?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ventura, I personally wasn't the one doing the research on the fees. That was Mr. Newcomb and Ms. Hernandez in the planning department. But I understand this is at the lower end of the fees. The intent of this proposed fee is to recover staff and the cost recovery based on staff time. Some of the higher fees I understand were in other municipalities possibly were proposed to recover bylaw enforcement events that they foresaw could be problems, but I think in Sydney we have other methods for those fees to be recovered. We have the RCMP and we have municipal ticket information fines already in place.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Mayor, my inclination is that given this again is very new, particularly with respect to the cannabis retail and the amount of consideration staff will give in each of these forums, that I would be more comfortable seeing these fees increased under A and C. And so if it's prudent through understanding the procedure here, I would like to move an amendment to the bylaw, to the draft bylaw.
A point of order, can we amend at first reading or second reading? Second reading. Yeah.
Okay.
We can amend at second reading.
Thank you.
Councillor Wainwright.
That's what I was going to
Thank you.
raise.
Okay. Councillor O'Keefe speaking to first reading.
So just sort of building on Councillor Rintoul's point on costs, and while other jurisdictions may have had higher costs anticipating enforcement, and it's been noted by staff that, well, we don't have to worry about that because we have the RCMP and CRD. However, I guess what I would make note of is that we pay for the RCMP. That comes from us. We pay for them. So if there's going to be additional enforcement on their part, if there's going to be maybe, I don't know if they have additional education planned in the school through liaison officers. So that's all going to be paid for us. So that's another reason why I would support increasing the fees as well.
Any other comment on first reading? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
I'll move second reading.
Thank you.
Second.
Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to move an amendment to the bylaw under fees and deposits, 3A, from $100 to $250, and 3C from $450 to $1,000.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Councillor Duncan.
I appreciate Councillor Rintoul and Councillor O'Keefe wanting to make sure that staff collect enough fees that our town will be adequately compensated for any staff time that is spent on this as it's new. On the other hand, I'm not certain how that additional money is supposed to help with funding additional RCMP programs if it is collected through bylaw. And I'm worried if it is not additional money that's going towards that, and that under staff's opinion, this is how much money it will cost them to do their job. If we are collecting more money, if it's not meant to be punitive towards a new business coming in.
Councillor Wainwright, then Councillor Rentoul.
Thank,
Sorry, if
Go
I could
ahead.
go to staff. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that, as pointed out in the staff report, the town currently does not charge a fee for reviewing liquor license applications, and obviously not for cannabis applications, since that hasn't been a process yet. Currently, staff have no fee for reviewing a liquor license application and sending a report to council. So this would be going from 0 to whatever the fee is decided tonight. Also, Mr. Newcomb, Senior Manager of Long Range Planning, was in communication with the RCMP through the development of the staff report, the proposed bylaws and the policy, and the RCMP voiced no concerns over what was proposed or their ability to enforce the bylaws. So just food for thought.
Okay, we had two speakers, Councillor Rayner.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm quite happy with our past practice of we recover what we expect are the actual costs and not looking for money beyond that. And the other point I was going to make is the one staff just made. This bylaw applies to liquor applications as well. So we're in fact imposing these thoughts about potential additional enforcement of cannabis on the liquor licenses as well. Of course, somebody could propose an amendment where there are different fees for the different kinds of licenses, but I'm comfortable with recovering costs of effort on the liquor licenses and recovering costs on the cannabis ones and not going beyond that. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Councillor Rentoul.
Yeah, thank you. And just with respect to the comment that was made earlier that perhaps it's punitive, not the case. I think there's some unknowns, notwithstanding Councillor Wainwright's comment that it replies to liquor application as well. I do understand that. I don't think those amounts are detrimental. I think we know how much time and effort is going to be required going into some of these applications and processes moving forward. I suspect that it's going to take more time and effort, not less, as we move forward with this process. And I recognize that this can be revisited in the future if it turns out that this is somehow far and beyond the time and effort that staff put into the process. So I'm comfortable with what's been what I've suggested and continue to support it. Thank you.
Any other question or comment? Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm comfortable with the staff recommendation. I'm assuming they've already put a certain amount of time and effort into looking into this issue, so I'm assuming that they would be a better judge than I on how much time they're going to be required going forward. And yes, there are some unknowns, but I rely on the fact that they are excellent at what they do, and their recommendation seems reasonable to me. So I will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay, any other comment on the amendment? Councillor O'Keefe?
I guess I'm still in favor of the amendment. I think this is something that's new. I think that there's a possibility that we could be underestimating what may come our way because it's new. And I guess I think it will be harder to go in later to increase the amount. So I'd rather start with something higher, and if it shows that we've overestimated, then as Councillor Rentoul says, we can always revisit that in the future.
Okay, I'll look to call the question on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed to the amendment? The motion is defeated. So we're back to the original motion. I'll call any further comment on the original motion? On second reading, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? With two opposed, the motion carries.
I'll move third reading.
Second.
Discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Two opposed, the motion carries. Now move to item 14C. We have development permit application number DP 100789 and development variance permit application number DV 100283, 2355 Orchard Avenue. It's to relax maximum lot coverage in order to construct a small lot, single-family dwelling. This has come before us before, and we have had no written submissions received as of Wednesday, July 2019, and no written submissions till this evening.
I'll move the recommendation
Go ahead.
that the application be approved and that development permit application number DP 100789 be approved, subject to conditions as per council resolution number 2019.25.294.
Second.
Discussion. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Move to item 14D, which is development variance permit application number DV 100284 10326 Manaw Place to relax setback requirements to allow accessory structure in the rear yard. And we have, again, it has come before us previously. We have no written submissions received as Wednesday, July 3rd, or to this evening.
Move the recommendation the application be approved.
Second.
Discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
You can't abstain.
I had to recuse myself from the discussion before, so, yeah. There's no discussion.
Okay, the motion carries. And we'll now move to new business. We have, under new business, we have item 15A, the Community Resiliency Investment Program for Wildfire Prevention Initiative. And we have a notice of motion from Councillor Duncan at our council meeting of June 24th, and we have the motion before us this evening.
Therefore be resolved that council directs staff to write a letter to the Capital Regional District and all member local governments indicating council's interest in participating in a co-application submitted by the CRD on behalf of its members to UBCM's Community Resilience Investment Program for the development of a regional vegetation management strategy.
Second.
Discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. We have several items under correspondence for information.
Move receipt.
Second.
Discussion. Call the question. Those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And we have no notices of motion or a motion to go on camera, so I'll seek a motion for adjournment.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.